Hey there, I'm going to make this quick. I've got a bunch of stuff going on, and we may be going out of town this weekend. Anyway, I've got a bunch of clips scheduled. I'm doing these shorter clips, 2, 3 minutes, some cases 4, just on a topic. And it's an app I made where I can search, I can type in what I want it to be about, and it searches all my transcripts and grabs clips, and then extracts the audio from the videos, and then adds a little AI introduction, and then makes a thumbnail and a title and uploads it for me and schedules it. It's pretty cool. But anyway, it's a way for me to repurpose content and get some shorter stuff out there, because I tend to be long-winded, as you all know. And also in, I think, October 15th, YouTube is going to change the shorts. They used to be it had to be under a minute. Now you can be up to 3 minutes. So it's a good way to increase visibility for your channel and link to playlists and stuff. Introduce people to your content. So I've got a bunch of those going out related to the prophetic word and the rapture, because every time we hit these seasons, I start seeing people on my wall. Now, these are man-made seasons of, oh, now we're watching for the rapture again. This is it. Now things are really moving forward. And you can kind of tell by the fruit that it's artificial, because it doesn't produce the encouragement of the prophetic word. The prophetic word is about God's faithfulness to his covenant promises. And the reason the prophetic word is given is for the New Testament age, is for edification, the building up of the body of Christ, and comfort, so that the Christ in your life today is the Christ who fulfills his word. You make that connection. Now, you can know when you're dealing with false prophetic updates and seasons, because it's a Christ for tomorrow, but I'm miserable today. And you start seeing people accusing God of being unfaithful, not loving us, leaving us here to die. It gets really old year after year. I saw a prophetic so-called update about let's renew our minds and get our minds on Christ. And it had, for background effects, F-15 fighter, or F-22, whatever, the sounds of fighter jets. And I don't think this person lived in Israel. So where did they get these fighter jet sounds all through their video while they're telling you to keep your mind on Christ? Well, it's artificially manufactured, which is cynical. That is not the prophetic word. Oh, look at Jesus, because look what's behind him. Anyway, it's not powerful. It seems powerful. It's not. It's cynical. A cynical use of technology to capitalize on fear that they generate, and then tell you, but Jesus is coming, don't worry, he's your escape. And that's not the prophetic message. The prophetic message is the promise of the kingdom to the seed who is the heir, which is Christ, and we're co-heirs together with him. And because we're co-heirs, we have his provision in our life and his strength and his grace in our life today, no matter what we're going through. We all do go through trials and seasons, but the prophetic community, well, lots of communities, but this one capitalizes on those feelings of despair and takes away your strength by presenting the world as just completely in chaos and it's completely out of control. Even God can't control it. Jesus is going to have to come back quick and get us out of here. And if he doesn't, we're screwed. That's the cynical message of the so-called rapture watching community. And I believe in pre-trib rapture. but it's a matter of conscience. That's what, if I teach on it, it's because people are overthrowing people's faith, and tell them, you missed the rapture because you weren't qualified, or you took that thing and that's the mark of the beast, and all that stuff has implications for the gospel. But the prophetic word should assure you and make you moderate. Paul said in Philippians, let your moderation be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. The opposite of moderation is freaking out constantly because of how bad the world supposedly is. And someone said on my wall yesterday, if the Lord really, responding to my message on God's love, sending his son, if God really loved us, I wish he loved us enough to get us out of here. The whole world, there's many people crying out why won't even hear us. It's so bad, everything's going to hell. And I rebuked him. And he's a longtime sub, but it's just like, that is the cry of an entitled person. You're on YouTube, on your phone, or on a laptop, watching fear porn, or watching your Rapture videos in your air-conditioned house, saying that life is so bad it's unlivable unless Jesus gets me out of here. And you just think about when we live compared to, none of us live in Mao's China, or North Korea, or Russia during the time of Stalin, or during the Dark Ages with the Inquisitions, or during the early church days with the gladiatoriums. This idea that things have gotten so bad and so out of control is hogwash. We live in air condition, we live longer than anybody's lived, we're healthier, we have more options, we have freedoms. I'm talking about in the West. But most people are convinced that the world is so bad that they can't even get out of their house, and they can't get a job, or they can't, all their strength has been taken away from them, all their agency. And they don't believe Christ is available to them today. That's a false prophetic message. Yes, certain things, signs, do kick up, like the travail of a woman who's going to give birth. But travail and contractions means the baby's coming. That's supposed to be an indicator of joy, not fear. And the contractions are, increased storms and earthquakes and stuff like that. But we haven't, even this hurricane, they hyped it up and hyped it up. And don't get me wrong, it's bad. But it's not what we saw in 2011 in the Philippines. Or was it in Japan when the nuclear reactor was mixed with the water, overrun by the water and the tsunami? Stuff happens in this planet. And it doesn't always mean that the tribulation is at the door. And the logic is, because things are so bad, that must mean that the tribulation is at the door, and since the tribulation is at the door, the rapture has to happen first. That's the same logic that the fake watchmen used when they said, this thing that's going to roll out is the mark of the beast. But don't worry, that means Jesus has to come back first. And so then, when it started rolling out, those same people said that military trucks were going to pin you down and make you take it, or spray it via aerosol in the air, and you wouldn't even have a choice, and it would change your God gene so that you're no longer eligible for salvation because now you're a Nephilim, or not human. But don't worry, before any of that can happen, Jesus comes first, the rapture comes first. So look up. That's what they do. That's what that video I saw was just a couple minutes of. You hear these F-15s and stuff in the background, and they're telling you, look up and, keep your eyes on Jesus. And it's artificial sound effects. You have to understand that all of the stuff of the Great Tribulation, or the 70th week, is held back. we may see some foreshadows and inklings that something like that could happen, but it's all held back. Anything we see is a dress rehearsal. Even COVID was a dress rehearsal compared to the real things that'll be unleashed when those seals are opened. And the reason they're held back is because God's doing something in the church. And those things are not the trigger for the rapture of the church. The rapture of the church is the removal of the restrainer that allows all those things to happen. We've got it backwards. You think, we've got to get out of here because all that stuff's coming. No, that stuff's not coming because we're here. You know? So it's frustrating to watch the bad fruit. And you don't even, I don't even know what's going on YouTube because I don't go watch the channels, but I start seeing people on my wall complaining and freaking out. Now people have been asking Eliezer, some have been asking, don't worry, I don't know who they are. I only know the IP address and the question, so it's not like I'm keeping track of anybody's names, but, so it's anonymous, you're safe. If you're asking personal questions or whatever, that's fine. I do see the questions because I'm training the system. But some people, number of people asked about whether, is that a sign of God's judgment on this country? And it's funny because I don't teach that. I don't have a teaching that links weather and God's judgment on the country. So the transcripts that came back that were closest were messages about God's discipline, and the AI tried to assemble an answer that basically said, you know, when God disciplines his children, it's not a judgment. It taught what I taught about discipline. It's not a judgment or a punishment for sin. It's his love to teach you your dependency on Christ. And while there's nothing in the transcripts to link weather and judgment, he could use the weather to discipline his children. It was just kind of funny. But anyway, that's probably related to the hurricane, you know. The dock workers strike. Everybody in the media and everybody all over YouTube saying this is going to collapse the entire economy. It was resolved in 3 days, 4 days. All that stuff is held back, not by men, but by God. And he provides for us today. That's why knowing the spirit of sonship and knowing the real prophetic word is so important. So many people are talking about prophecy who can't even prove to you from the Old Testament that Jesus is the Messiah. And can't analyze Daniel 9:24 through 27, which all prophetic timings center around that passage. Never read it, never studied it, never teach it. They don't teach the prophetic word. But there's people who are asking, is God going to destroy America? Are we under this judgment? Because it's not mentioned in the book of Revelation, or, you know. Well, the only country that Revelation really mentions, I think, is Jerusalem, you know, Israel. But still, the reason God doesn't mention America in the Bible is not because he's going to destroy it before the prophecies are fulfilled. It's because when God speaks prophetically to nations, he doesn't use artificial constructs. America is a man-made construct that we've assembled and called ourselves America. And we've associated it with a geographical region. But the people, and that's what God's concerned with, that make up America are from every nation. It's a hodgepodge, right? But the nations, when God speaks to the nations prophetically, typically he uses the table of nations in Genesis 11, which maps out the descendants of Ham, Shem, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, based on the blessings, decrees, and prophecies and a curse that Noah uttered, which has pretty much shaped the destiny of the nations. And when you read Ezekiel 38, for example, and it refers to what we believed to be like Russia and Turkey, and the reason they say it's Russia is because it's Meshech and Rosh, and the histories show that the Scythians came from these people, and the Scythians were the forerunners to modern Russians. But God's not looking at a region called Russia. He's looking at a people that he names by their families, according to the Table of Nations. So God doesn't look at the world the same way we do. And I'm really beginning to believe that almost all Western prophecy teachers are just flat out wrong on most of it, including some of the ones I really respected. And it's because they assume that America is a real thing, and so therefore has to be addressed one way. And the fact that it's not addressed means, it'll be destroyed or whatever. But that's not that's not prophecy. That is an artificial layer on top. And I don't have time to get into this, but I did the message Babylonian Psyop a while ago, a couple messages on it, that the system we look at today is descended from Babylon, and we know this from Daniel's vision in chapter 2 of the polymetallic figure that represented the course of human history from the Gentile perspective, which has the head of gold, which is Babylon, and then the silver and the bronze being Persia and Greece, and then the iron representing Rome. All of that proceeds out of Babylon. And the present world order today is known in the Bible as Mystery Babylon. And it was Mystery Babylon, it was Babylon when Peter wrote of Rome, called it Babylon. And it's Babylon today. It's the entire world system, economically, politically, and religiously, all descended from all of our systems come from Babylon. And it's a woman, this world order is a woman that rides a beast. And the beast doesn't emerge until the midpoint of the tribulation, when the abyss is opened and its figurehead, Apollyon, comes forth. Apollyon is the son of Zeus. And that goes all the way back to Babel. Nimrod was Zeus. The figure for Zeus, Tammuz, is Apollyon. I've taught on this a lot. But that system that suddenly emerges comes from all the nations, the sea, and it's under the sea, and it doesn't emerge until it does. And when it does, it happens very quickly, and it happens suddenly, and it's different than every other system that went before it, and it devours Babylon, which at that point the whole world hates. This system that thinks that she has authority over the beast and rides it, but actually he devours her flesh. And actually that goes back to ancient myths about the enmity between Nimrod and Semiramis, his wife. But this represents a satanic religion that's at the core of all the other religions, the mystery religions, besides the Jewish and then the Christian faith. Anyway, Mystery Babylon is what we're seeing today, and she's an enchantress and a deceiver and pretends to be something she's not. She pretends to be the bride of Christ in her religious aspect, but she also pretends to be the beast system. She pretends to be the fulfillment of prophecy, cynically. And in the Babylonian Psyop, I said that the world leaders, they know what they're doing when they're, facetiously taking patents with 666 and all the different things. They know what they're doing to pretend to fulfill prophecy right in front of your face. And it is they don't believe any of it, but a lot of them are also occultists. And it is an attack on the psychology of Christians. Anyway, I recommend that video series because it'll change. If you're into the prophetic word, it will give you food for thought, because prophecy teaching today is pointing at the woman, Babylon, and calling it the beast, and confusing the two, and therefore making all kinds of erroneous predictions based on what they think is the beast system. And they're applying wrong prophecies to present day events. Now we are in a season, and have been since Israel was repopulated. Now that's not the same thing as men, the Balfour Declaration, where men decided to divide up the land and say, this is Israel. No, that God ignores all that. What he's focused on was he prophesied to the mountains. It said men and beast would be multiplied on the mountains, and they were formerly desolate, but now they're being prepared for his people that are yet to come. His people have not been renewed, and that's Israel. That's the purpose of the 70th week of Daniel, is the salvation of Israel and the fulfillment of the promises. And yes, it involves the judgment of the nations, but that's not the main focus. The main focus is the kingdom and Christ, the seed to whom all the promises are made, taking what's his. And people think that the artificial construct America is going to be judged for not supporting the artificial construct called Israel. And that's not true. That land is not Israel's, it's Christ's. That's the whole point. When he came, the seed to whom all the promises are made presented himself as the heir and was rejected. And that's why they were cut off. And they won't see him again until they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And they're not going to have a kingdom or a land until the Lord takes it. That's the point of the book of Revelation, is Christ receiving his inheritance and taking possession of it. So this whole idea that, I'll bless those who bless thee and curse those who curse thee, that's talking about Abraham's seed, which is Christ. It's not talking about Abraham's physical seed, who are not the remnant, are in unbelief, and are part of a cut-off branch. Now there will be a remnant that will believe, and the Lord will save them. But it'll be his kingdom, not theirs. And we have to get that right. There's people saying that this country is going to be destroyed because of their treatment of Israel. And I'm telling you, God doesn't respect this nation as an entity, nor does he look at the nations that way. He's looking at the families and the descendants of those families. He's not looking at what governments do. He laughs at that. Right? He's the kings of the earth plot together, saying, let us cast off their bonds and cast off the Lord and his anointed. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill in Zion. No, he's not regarding America one way or another based on their supposed treatment of Israel. And I'm not saying be for or against any of that. I'm not talking politics here. I'm just saying that we're not, when we get storms and stuff, it's not a judgment from God. This is a time of grace, not a time of wrath. Peace on earth and goodwill towards men. God is seeking and saving that which is lost. And we need to be, as his ambassadors, a representative of his intention and his heart, which is the prophetic message, the testimony of Jesus Christ. So I guess this is kind of a rant, but I wanted to talk about that a little bit, that This is just not real. Don't get me wrong. I do believe that the Lord is coming, and I do believe in a pre-trib rapture. But I've been on YouTube for 7 years, and I've watched this keep happening and happening. It always bears the same fruit, and it's always awful. It destabilizes people and overthrows their faith. It's not real rapture watching. The way to watch for the rapture is to abide in Christ. Really. And to live him today. He's abundantly available today. And if you don't know how to enjoy him today, then when he comes, that'll be like a thief to you. Seriously, it'll be totally strange. It'll be like, that caught me totally off guard. I thought I was watching for the rapture, but I was surprised and I shrank back in fear because I didn't know how to abide in the Lord. My conscience wasn't clear. I didn't know how to stand in his presence under the blood by faith and be bold. And that's what 1 John was talking about. You know, now little children abide in him so that when he appears you may have confidence at his coming and not shrink back in shame or fear. Okay, I had to go. I wanted to make this shorter, but I may or may not